Hi guys, welcome back to my read long channel. We are reading Candyfloss by Jacqueline Wilson. This is all Jacqueline Wilson's own work, just reading it for entertainment and pleasure. Today we are going to continue with chapter 18, which starts on page 247, and it of course ends on chapter 19, and that's on page 269. So again, a longer one today, so get some snacks in and a nice drink and sit back and enjoy the story. Chapter 18. On Sunday morning, Dad and I loaded all of the neatly labelled cardboard boxes into the van. Then Dad struggled with my silver chest of drawers and my swing. He crammed in his old CD player and all our old pots and pans and crockery and a box of vital tools I'd never seen him actually use. He dithered for a long time out in the yard, shifting all the bits of motorbike under the tarpaulins. He laid them all out on the concrete, as if they were parts of jigsaw puzzle, and if he could only sort them out all systematically, he'd be able to construct a splendid Harley-Davidson there and then. He actually moved pieces around as if he was looking for a piece of sky or flat edge. Then he sighed. "What am I going to do with it all, Floss?" he said. "I've been collecting all this stuff for years and years, right from when I was in my teens. Take it with us, Dad." "Yes, but what am I going to do with it? Make your own custom-built motorbike, Dad. How cool would that be?" Yeah. If I was still 20 years old, but I'm pushing 40, Floss. I'm a tubby old dad. I doubt I've got the bottle for roaring around the roads on a bike, even if I had none. No, I might as well leave the lot here. Maybe someone else will find the spare parts useful, eh? But you like them so, Dad. They're part of you. You're only part of me. You're the only part of me I want to keep forever, Flossie. It's time to move on. It's goodbye to Charlie's Cafe. Let's go around and say goodbye to every room, Dad. Would that be totally nuts? Oh, darling, let's go on a little tour of the premises. We said goodbye to the kitchen and tried to count up how many chip butties Dads might have made right from the opening day. It was as if thousands of phantom chip butties were whirling around like galaxies in outer space. Then we said goodbye to the cafe itself. We sat at every single table and we toasted our very special customers in lemonade, our dear Billy the Chip and old Ron and Miss Davis, but also people we'd remembered for years. The man with the red face who ordered 10 chip butties and ate every single one. Gollop, gollop, gollop. The couple who held hands and ordered a big mixed grill to share and then shyly confided that it was their wedding breakfast. The lady who came in with her Labrador and ordered 1 chip butty for herself and 1 for the dog. Then we went back upstairs and said goodbye to my bedroom, and Dad told me how he and Mum had taken me home from hospital when I was born and tucked me up in a little Moses basket. They spent hours and hours trying to get me to go to sleep, and then when I finally nodded off, they were so worried that they woke me up again just to make sure I was still breathing. "Do you know I still sometimes creep in when you're asleep and check your breathing," said Dad. We said goodbye to Dad's bedroom and the bathroom and the loo, and then we said the saddest goodbye to the living room. "Let's have one last cuddle on the sofa, Floss," said Dad. We curled up together and traded memories as we started the blank television screen. It was as if films in our family life flickered there. Long ago, happy in Mum and Dad and Flossin times. We both sighed, then kissed the top. Dad kissed the top of my head and said gently, "Let's get on our way, little darling." Lucky was hiding in her duvet, sensing something was definitely up. She'd taken her time in deciding she wanted to come and live in our house, and now we were expecting her to leave before she'd even settled in. She didn't want to be lifted up, and I had to hang on hard to her, duvet and all. She meowed indignantly for me to put her down. "I've got to hang on to you this time, Lucky. We're going to a new house now. You'll like it just as much. You'll see," I said, though I wasn't sure that was very likely. Dad drove us very slowly and carefully out of the town and to Billy the Chip's house. It was on a big mock Tudor housing estate, row after row of identical semi-detached houses with black and white panels and crazy paving and clipped privet hedges. I was sure I was going to get muddled as every single street looked the same. I clutched Lucky tightly. "We're here, pet," said Dad, drawing up outside number 4 Oak Crescent. We peered at the house. The privet hedge was waving out of control and the crazy paving was sprouting weeds from every crack. "Poor old Billy, it's obviously got a bit much for him," said Dad. "We'll do our best to tidy it up for him, won't we, Floss?" "Yes, Dad," I said in a small voice. I felt like Lucky, who was still meowing piteously in her duvet. I didn't want to start living in the shabby old house. It didn't seem to have anything to do with me. I thought of the airline ticket, Dad had taken it out of the kitchen drawer and given it to me to look after. I had soothed it out carefully and tucked it into the plastic case of the Railway Children video. I'd opened up the case 20 or 30 times over the last couple of days just to check the ticket was still safe. I wasn't going to use it. I couldn't leave Dad. I couldn't leave Susan. I couldn't leave Lucky, though I had asked Mrs. Horsefield privately if you were allowed to take animals on aeroplanes. Dad reached out and took hold of my hand. "Okay, little Floss," he said. I took a deep breath. "Okay, Big Dad," I said. We got out of the van, and I held tightly to Lucky. She was so keen to be put down now that we were out of the noisy, scary van and on firm ground again, that she scrabbled frantically with her paws and scratched my neck. I knew it was an accident, but it hurt quite a lot, and it hurt my feelings too. I had to blink hard and clamp my lips together to stop myself crying. I knew Dad was peering at me anxiously. I tried hard to make my mouth smile. Dad's own smile was pretty forced too. We knocked on Billy's door. The knocker was tarnished and the black paint blistered, but there was a lovely stained glass window to set into the door with a big round sun and long slanting rays, the sort I used to paint when I was in the infants. The door opened and there was Billy squinting in the daylight, looking paler and frailer than ever, but he was proudly wearing a strange new nylon tracksuit, and he had a money bag strapped round his old saggy tummy. "I'm all set up for my trip," he said, patting his purse and holding his nylon arms out for inspection. "What do you think of the new gear? I wanted to be comfy travelling." "You look dead trendy, Billy. Those air hostesses would be buzzing around you like bees round a honey pot," said Dad. "I'm very droll," said Billy, "but you look pleased. Well, come in there. Welcome to your new home. I'm afraid it's lacking in mod-cons. I'd rather set in my ways." He opened the door wider and we stepped inside. We stayed standing still, blinking in the gloom, staring all around us. It didn't seem as if we'd stepped into someone's home. It was as if we'd moved into a museum. The hall had a little table and an umbrella stand and one of those fat old-fashioned cream phones with a round dial. There was a crochet mat underneath the telephone, yellow with age. There were many more crochet mats in Billy the Chip's living room. They were on the back of his shabby olive green sofa and each arm too. There was a matching set on both green armchairs. There were more mats on the nests of tables and yet more under the china vases on the mantelpiece over the tiled fireplace. There was a big woolen semicircular mat in front of this fireplace. Two vastly fat tabby cats lay symmetrically either side, paws outstretched. Lucky gave an anxious meow in my arms. I held on to her protectively. Mr. Chip's cats were great tigers compared to tiny Lucky. More mats were laid out like a card game on a big sideboard, each covered with a photograph. There were old wedding photos. I stared at a strange stiff couple, the man with a little moustache and a wing collar tickling his chin, the lady with her wedding veil right down over her forehead. "That's Mother and that's Father," said Billy to Chip, gesturing as if they were real and standing 6 centimetres tall on his sideboard. He pointed to another wedding couple, a thin, awkward young man, a plump woman with her hands tucked in his arm. "And that's me and my Marion." He stroked the glass of the photo over Marion's rounded cheeks. They were baby photos too, a bare little boy lying on the same semicircular rug. "That's my boy. He's another Billy, like his dad and granddad, but he calls himself Will nowadays," said Billy, shaking his head. "Does he have a chip fan in Australia, Mr. Chip?" I asked. "No, he swore he was never going into the fried chip business. Couldn't persuade him. He did bartending and now he's got his own wine bar in Sydney, though I dare say he serves up chips as a bar snack. French fries or potato wedges or whatever fancy name they call them now," Billy sniffed. "I wonder if Mum and Steve ever go there now," I said. "Sydney's a very big city, Floss," Dad said gently. "Your Billy's moved in with the times, mate," he said to Billy. "That makes him the smart guy, much smarter than you and me." Time had certainly stood still in Billy's house. He did have a television, but that was even older than our telly at the cafe. There was a wind-up gramophone beside it, with a pile of old black records in a brown paper sleeves. "Good God, Billy, have you kept these from your courting days?" said Dad, looking through them. "Hey, these are even before your time, surely." "They were Mum and Dad," said Billy. He gestured with his trembling old fingers. "They moved in here right from their honeymoon. Spanking new, the house was my mum's dream home. It was considered dead modern in these days. It was hard trying to imagine this musty old house as modern. I tried picturing a couple dancing to the gramophone, a baby crowing on the rug, laughter and shouting and doors banging, but house stayed still and silent. "I'll show you to your room," said Billy. He led the way up the threadbare carpet and then showed us each room along the landing. The bathroom had an old bath with rust stains under the big taps and black chips in the enamel. It doesn't look too grand, but I clean it regularly, said Billy. Billy said, sounding obviously embarrassed. It's fine, Billy, and obviously spotless, said Dad, patting Mr. Chip's nylon sleeve. You're much better at housekeeping than we are. He puts us to shame, doesn't he, Floss? There was a main bedroom that had once been Billy's mum and Dad's, and then Billy and Marion's, and now it was just Billy's. There was something about that sad, big empty bed that reminded me of Dad's bedroom back at the cafe. Dad looked relieved when Billy the Chip suggested he sleep in the second bedroom, which always had been a square room with a single bed. It had framed pink ribbons on the neck curtains, and the mats all over the dressing table were pale and pink to match. There was a fire screen with an embroidered thatched cottage and a faded pink fluffy bedspread. It looked like a room for an old lady. My dad looked too big and too fat and too rough for such room, but he told Billy it was lovely, and he was very grateful. Now I thought we'd put little Flossie in a young Billy's room, said old Billy. It was one of the only rooms in the house that wasn't stuck in the 1930s time warp. It was a strange boy mixture. There was old footballer posters on the walls and rock music tapes piled up building blocks, and an elderly Paddington Bear stood in the corner of his duffel coat and his Wellingtons. Oddly, right in the middle of the carpet there was a doll's house. It was a 1930s doll's house, 2 houses, 2 semi-detached homes, making one of the whole house, with a sloping red tile roof, black and white panelling, and 2 front doors. I squatted down beside it, still hanging on to Lucky, but I was so distracted that she squeezed herself out of one end of the duvet and stood alert. Her back arched, her tail outstretched, not sure where she was off to now. She was free at last. Look at the doll's house, Dad, I said. There was a hook at one end, so I edged it open and the front of the house swung forward. It was fully furnished inside, with a little carved wooden replicas of sofas and chairs and tables and baths and beds. One half of the house had small green cushions on the chairs and a little crochet mat as small as penny piece. It's your house, Mr. Chip. Yours and the matching one next door, I exclaimed. Where did you get it? I made it myself, love, said Billy. It was rather a dark notion. I'd always whittled away at the potatoes in the old moments, carving out a face here and a monkey there, a clown, whatever took my fancy. I'd fried them for the customers just for a laugh, but then when our Billy was on the way, I fancied making something more permanent. I took it to my head that he'd be a girl, so I started in on a doll's house. Daft idea, really. I mean, it's not the sort of thing modern kiddies want to play with anyway. I would, Mr. Chip, I said. Then you play with it all you want while you're here, sweetheart. Are you sure, Billy? It's a total awesome work of art, said Dad, kneeling in front of it. Floss is a very careful girl, but I'm not sure she should be allowed to touch it. No, it's meant to be played with. I'd always hoped for a little girl, but we only had our Billy Will. I wondered if he had a daughter, but Will's not. Will you call Marion kind? So if little Floss here would like it, then the house is hers. Oh, Mr. Chip, I couldn't possibly keep it, I said, though I wanted it desperately. Yes, you have it, darling. I promised you a birthday present, and here it is. You can carry on furnishing it if you fancy doing so. I made a few bits and bobs, and my Marion did the mats, but we felt a bit daft, like when there was no one to play with them. It's yours, Floss. Thank you, I said, and reached up and gave him a big hug round his wrinkled tortoise neck. You've got to stop doing all these favours for us, Billy, said Dad. You've been so good to us. You're the ones being good to me, watching over the house and the cats while I gallivant off. Billy paused. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I'm going all the way to Australia. Maybe my lad doesn't want me visiting. We didn't always see eye to eye when he lived here. We didn't part on the best of terms. He'll be thrilled to see you, Billy. Lads row with their dads and leave home to make their own way in life. It's only human nature. But he's a man now, and he'll be thrilled at this chance of seeing you. Do you really think so? Said Billy, sounding doubtful. Mr. Chip, if I hadn't seen my dad for years and years, I'd be jumping right over the moon, I said. If you could jump that far, you could propel yourself and save on the airfare, said Billy, ruffling my curls. I don't like it when people do that. It even annoys me when Dad does it. But I stood my ground and smiled politely. Mr. Chip said I was a sweet kid, and Dad was lucky to have me, and he went all watery-eyed. Dad said he knew that, and he had to dab his own eyes with a hanky. I fidgeted from foot to foot, feeling foolish. Billy insisted on cooking us Sunday dinner. I've got a roast chicken in the oven and roast potatoes. I'm not cooking you chips because you're the bee's knees when it comes to chips and there's no point in competing, said Billy. Chip master of the universe, said Dad, beating his plump tummy and flexing his muscles. Mr. Chip's cats had their own lunch out in the kitchen. I've got Lucky's special bowl and sprinkled a few dried biscuit balls in it. Whiskey and Soda looked up from their own mashed fish bits and eyed Lucky's bowl. Whiskey ambled over to it. Soda followed. They licked their lips and meowed greedily. Lucky barely came up to their furry shoulders. It looked as if one swat of whiskey or soda pour would send her flying. I needn't have worried. Lucky had lived on the streets. She knew how to defend her territory. She gave a ferocious meow and darted forward, wiggling right under their noses and buried her head in her bowl. She flicked her delicate tail on Whiskey and Soda's surprised faces. They slunk back to their own bowls, trying to look nonchalant. When they all nibbled lunch, first Whiskey, then Soda wheezed out of the cat flap for a saunter round the garden. Lucky experimented, poking her head after them curiously. She gathered courage, nudged hard, and then hurtled out into the garden. I ran to the window and watched her peer around in astonishment, like Alice newly arrived in Wonderland. She circled the entire flower bed, trying to stalk a sparrow, but it flew away mockingly whenever she made a move. Is Lucky settling in? Floss, said Dad. Sorry, guys. Oops, sorry, I've lost my bit. Is Lucky settling in, Floss? Said Dad, coming over to the window. I think so. What about you, darling? I think I am too, Dad, I said, though I wasn't really sure. I didn't want to live in Billy's house, although it was mean even to think it was being so generous and hospitable. It was so strange and old-fashioned, and it smelled musty like the clothes at charity shops. I hoped I wouldn't smell musty as well as Chippy. Rhiannon and Margot and Judy went round holding their noses whenever they stood near me as it was. It seemed so weird that only a month ago I'd taken it for granted that I just had an ordinary washing powder, clean clothes, shampoo smell just like everyone else. I had a mum and my own special bedroom in our pretty house. Even Rhiannon had remarked on my cherry pattern duvet and my matching curtains. Now I didn't have anything ultra clean or was pretty or matching. I knew I was being dreadful, feeling sorry for myself when Dad was trying so hard and Mr. Chip had been so kind giving me the beautiful doll's house, but I still couldn't stop 2 tears spurting down my face. I bent my head quickly, but I think Dad saw. He squeezed my shoulders tightly. We'll be fine, little Floss. He lowered his voice. This is just a temporary measure, sweetheart. We'll find you somewhere lovely for us just soon. You'll see. You'll never know your luck. Something will bob out of the blue. I tried to imagine a beautiful home emerging out of nowhere, a coral palace out of the blue sea, a cloud castle out of a blue sky, a Swiss chalet out of a blue mountain. I blinked and swallowed hard to stop the rest of my tears. They seemed to stay in my throat, and I couldn't swallow Billy's roast chicken dinner. He tried so hard to make it a lovely meal for us, but the chicken was slimy under its skin, and the roast potatoes were speckled with black bits of grit from the oven, and the cabbage looked and smelled like old stewed leaves. I chewed and chewed and chewed. I felt myself getting red in the face. Is the roast okay? Billy asked anxiously. It's just smashing, Billy, said Dad. I felt him nudging me under the table. He was passing me his big hanky. Then he started chatting to Billy about his chip van and where he stored it and the times he opened and shut for the evening, while I turned my head and discreetly spat most of my meal into the hanky, pretending to wipe round my mouth. When Dad got up to clear the table, he managed to dump the hanky quickly at the bottom of Billy's rubbish bin. I looked up at him gratefully, and he wiggled his eyebrows at me. How about going to play in the back garden, Floss? Said Dad. See if you can spot a good tree for your swing. I went out the kitchen door and walked up and down the stretch of grass at the back. There was going to be a big problem. Billy had a flower bed on either side, although they looked more like weed beds now, but he didn't have any trees at all. He'd had a few shrubs and bushes, but they would have barely supported a toy swing, let alone a real one. Dad looked up eagerly when I trailed back. Then he saw the expression on my face. His own face sagged. It's okay, Dad. I think I'm maybe too old for swinging now anyway, I said quickly. We spent the afternoon watching television, although none of us were really concentrating on it. Billy kept checking his passport and his flight ticket and his Australian dollars. Dad kept looking around, yawning and sighing and stretching his arms in the air. He suggested I go and unpack my stuff, but I did that in 5 minutes. I knelt down and looked at the doll's house. It was difficult to know how to play with it when it didn't have any people. I tried cramming Ellerina and Dimple into the room, but their heads hit the ceiling and their legs sprawled in every corner, so they looked like a battery elephant and a dog in a small cage. I needed to make some proper tiny people. I had a pack of plasticine that Steve's mum had given me for a birthday present. I took it and started modelling. I made me first, rolling a yellow strip into lots of bubbles for my curls. I put me in the right half of the house. I made Dad, and then a little Lucky. I had to make her purple as they didn't make black plasticine. I made Susan too, come to visit us, staying overnight in my bed on a special sleepover. Then I made Mum. I tried very hard to make the plasticine Mum very slim and stylish, using the bright pink for her dress. I got a bit sniffly creating her and had to stop to have a good blow of my nose with the toilet paper. It hurt because Billy had the weirdest crackly stuff in his bathroom that totally sandpapered your skin. Then I did Steve with a pink bullet head and huge muscles on his arms and tiny tiger crawling on all fours. I put them in the left-hand house. I made a thin plasticine door on either side of both adjoining living rooms so that me doll could run between the houses whenever she wanted. Then I sat back inside. "Are you okay, Flossie?" Dad called up the stairs. "Yes, I'm fine, Dad," I said quickly. "Are you all set to take Billy to the airport?" "Of course I am," I said. I picked up the pink plasticine Mum and gave her a big kiss, stroking her very carefully because I didn't want her head or arms or her legs to fall off. "I love you, Mum," I whispered. I thought about that airline ticket. In just one day and night I could be with her. I'd stay in a lovely apartment and live in a sunny, glamorous city, and everyone I knew would envy me like crazy, and no one would ever sneer at me or tease me, pity me. "Floss," Dad called. I picked up the plasticine Dad and tickled his tummy with my fingernail and made him chuckle and jump about. "I love you, Dad," I whispered. "Don't worry, I'm going to stay with you no matter what," I paused. "You never know your luck. Something might bob up out the blue." Dad and I took Billy to Heathrow. We packed the van and helped him negotiate his way to the check-in desk. And then we went with him as far as the departures gate. Billy looked so old and frail that Dad asked if we could possibly walk him through to the other side of the airport, but they wouldn't let us. "Oh well, I'm sure you'll be fine, Billy, my boy. Just find the prettiest young lady hostess, hook your arm in hers and get her to help you on your way." "You're the guy who should be hooking up with someone young and pretty," said Billy. "Oh dear, my tummy's all butterflies. Wish me a safe flight, Flossie. You're the wee girlie who brings me luck. You'll be safe as safe, and have a lovely time, Mr. Chip," I said. I don't know about that. If the good Lord had meant us to fly, he'd have given us wings," said Billy. "I've lived well over 3/4 of a century without venturing more than 6 feet in the air, and now I'm embarking on a journey that will take me 6 miles up in the sky. Keep your fingers crossed for me the next 24 hours that I don't suddenly plummet downwards." "We'll keep our fingers and our toes crossed, mate," said Dad, and he gave Billy a big hug. I had to give him a hug too and kiss his white whiskery cheek. Then he toddled off, trying to wave jauntily through this terribly tottery on his old bowed legs. "I hope to God he makes it okay," said Dad. "Tell you what, Floss, if you were travelling with him, it would be you looking after old Billy. Bless him, not him looking after you." "But I'm not travelling, Dad." "I know you're not, darling. Remember, though, you've got your ticket safe and sound." "You might as well tear it up, Dad. I'm not going to use it," I said, taking his hand. On the drive back from Heathrow, Dad suddenly yelled out and pointed. There was a big field far off, all lit up. There were big wheels and roundabouts way in the distance. "It's the fair," said Dad. "Oh, well, let's go. Oh, Dad, please, can we?" "Of course, little darling. We'll find your roundabout and you can have another ride on Pearl. And we'll find the Candyfloss store and see Rose." "Well, that would be great," said Dad, turning right off in the main road towards the fair. We parked the car and then ran hand in hand, both of us skipping and dancing and whooping. But when we got to the field, it suddenly looked all wrong. The fans were lined up strangely, the rides were all different. The roundabout had many brightly painted horses with long manes and tails, but none of them were pink and none of them were called Pearl. We looked for the Candyfloss store. We found 3 different ones, but none of them had a big pink teddy bear tied up outside. None of them were roses. We were at the wrong fair. We wandered around a little, but it was no use. It wasn't the same at all. We had lost the heart for it. We just wanted to go home, though it was the wrong home too. And that is the end of chapter 18, guys. It was quite a long one today, so thank you for listening as always. Hope you're enjoying the book as much as I am. And until the next time, guys, goodbye.